Roger, thanks for dropping by. Must be that time again. Need to get this one done, otherwise we're going to run out of March. Did say I'd get these first initial looks done during March. We won't be visiting the plants again till June as part of this series. So this is the 2021 Project Orchids, Part 4, Other Types. Which basically means it's things that don't fit into the other categories of Dendrobiums, Oncidium Alliance and Cattleya Alliance. So it's anything else, which leaves me a lot of choice. So this particular group of plants are not necessarily related, associated in any shape or form. They're just some plants that it might be nice to follow through a growing season. They're not all in good condition. They're not all my best plants, although one of them is certainly doing rather well at the moment. So let's get going with the first plant. Okay, the first one is a rather poorly Ceologyne nitida, however you want to say it. Once upon a time it was Orchid. But the name's changed long enough ago that the new name should really be used now. Now this got repotted at a bad time. The trouble is I didn't really know when a good time was, and the media was getting old. It was starting to stay wet far too long, so it just had to come out of that media. And I think basically it's virtually lost its root system. The pseudo bulbs have now become incredibly desiccated, really bad. But what we've got are two growths. Now under normal circumstances with this plant, those will be flower spikes, and when the flowers have gone they continue to grow, push out some leaves and become pseudo bulbs, which is an unusual way for an orchid to grow, but that's how this one grows basically. I don't know where or when it's going to try and grow some new roots. I'm hoping that those two new growths will produce roots, because it's so badly desiccated now, it's losing its strength. But it's not lost, if you know what I mean. We've still got green leaves that are active. You know, these are working leaves on some of those bulbs. But the plant's not hydrating very well at all. Without roots it can't, can it? I think the only reason it's hanging in there is because the humidity's good. Otherwise it probably would have been lost. Obviously the loss of moisture through the leaves and everything is compensated by the higher humidity in the air. Anyway, so I don't know what to say about this one. I don't think I'm going to lose the plant. I presume these two growths will push on. They don't seem to be moving much at the moment. If they don't grow, I don't know what's going to become of the plant. We'll have to wait and see. But the logic is that these two growths will push on. I think if they do and they produce flower spikes, which they should do, that's how this one grows, I think I'll take those blooms straight off and get those growths going with some new leaves and hopefully some roots along the way. Now it'll be a shame to lose the blooms because they are rather nice, very fragrant and very attractive, but the plant has very little strength left in it. It shouldn't waste it trying to produce blooms. But if each one of these growths produces blooms before it can produce its leaves, the only way I can get it to push on is to take those blooms off. So that's where we are with that one. It's starting the season in a poor state, but certainly not in a state where the plant's going to be lost. But these pseudo bulbs have shriveled enough now that they're not going to plump up. No matter what happens, these are going to stay like this now. So they can't hold a lot of strength anymore. They've lost their substance. So we'll see how we go on with that one. Now this is Psychopsis Mariposa, and it's named Twins basically. Why it's got the name Twins I don't know. Maybe it can actually hold two flowers on a spike at the same time, but we're way off that actually happening. What is actually happening is a very, very poor root system. It's not non-existent, but it's hardly there. And it's only just holding its own with this plant. And since I've had it, it's grown no new roots. Now the plant is desiccated, yeah, the classic sign of thick fleshy leaves twisting, yeah. So this is not hydrating very well at all. It's in the coconut husk to try and keep some moisture around the few roots that there are, and the idea was to encourage it to grow some more. Now the top of the spike has gone green recently, which implies it's possibly going to try and flower. And in addition to that, this looks like a new growth. Now it's a very strange place for a new growth to come out in a leaf joint, in effect, yeah? And if that new growth is going to produce roots, it's going to be difficult for those roots to find a path into the media, which might mean I have to sacrifice this leaf, or at least take a chunk out of it to allow the roots to get down. But let's get the roots, you know, visible first. They may find their own way down through here. It's difficult to say, but I can't really raise the media up too far, or I could encourage some rot at the base, and we certainly don't want that. So this is in a strange situation at the moment, because it is starting a new growth. That at some point will produce some roots. The roots it's got are poor. It's showing some signs of life on the spike, which is it's not the best of ideas, but we'll see how we go with this. It's never bloomed. It arrived with the spike. I haven't grown the spike. And as Psychopsis goes, it's a very short spike. Very short. Normally at least half as long again, if not twice as long. But that's the state of play with this one then. It's just sort of holding its spike and producing that new growth. And I don't know what it's going to do next, hoping I'm going to get a nice size bulb and nice shiny new leaf from that growth with associated roots. But it's still not going to be a good root system, because it'll only be the roots from that one new growth. So the roots from the other growths on the plant are not there. They're just very weak, very poor. So I mean, that's how it arrived basically. It just didn't have a good root system. So we'll take it from there and see if we can grow this on. These are not the easiest of plants to grow in my environment, and again, these are warm growers. It's a bit silly trying to grow warm growers in a place where you get lower temperatures in the winter than it should get. You know, this shouldn't really drop down much below 18, 19 degrees C, not go down to 14, 15, and get ridiculous short days at the same time. So it's not in a good growing environment for the type of plant. Nonetheless, the flowers are gorgeous and I try with them. I tend to struggle, but I try. So we'll see how we go with that one. Right, the next one up is a Sarcochilus hybrid. Pop up with the name on. There's a lot of it. But I don't grow these very well, and I'm not sure why. But I think possibly the last time this was filmed, somebody said that they're growing theirs pretty good. Now, okay, they're down in Australia, which is where they come from, and they've got theirs mounted, and I hadn't thought about that, and that might be a solution, because it's not growing as well as it should. Okay, we've got some blooms. That's not a bad spike. I mean, these are not hugely mature plants. When you see a mature Sarcochilus, it will have many fans. They have similarities to the way that Tolumnias grow, in as much as they grow new fans from the base, and the plant bulks up as time goes on. And obviously they're all linked via very short rhizomes, so the plant gains strength as that happens. Whereas mine hasn't got much strength, because it's only got one mature fan, and it's making an attempt to grow some more, but it's not doing very well. Inside here, I do believe we have some roots. Well, there's a rotten root for a start. That one going across about a centimetre from the base of the pot. That's died. But then that long one next to it's a live root. Another one coming down there that's gone around the bottom of the pot. We've got some aerial roots which are not ideal, but that's where they decided to grow. And the trouble is, it looks like they're quite long roots, so to take this out of this pot now and try and mount it won't be easy, because I suspect they're brittle. I doubt if they're bendy roots. But it's an idea anyway. At the moment they're not growing as well as they should do. And, I've had a chat with Lynn, and she grows hers in bark, gives them good light. Well, they get good light, these are up near the glass on a shelf that gets good light, so they're getting the light okay. It almost looks like they might be getting too much. And they're in bark, so, I can't see the difference, but there is a difference. It may just be that my plant was a young plant and it's taking a while to establish. And maybe during this growing season it will push up a nice new fan in similar size to this, and that will sort of double its strength. But we shall wait and see. Anyway, we've got some blooms to look at, and some buds still to open, and it'll be a good time to find out how long they last. That'll be quite good. I don't know how close I can get with these. I'll have to touch the blooms. Probably getting quite close. But the light's quite bright in here today, and it automatically washes the colour. These are actually quite a good yellow and white, but nice delicate little blooms. And first blooms on a Sarcochilus for a while. This was a gift, in fact, so not chosen by me. It was sent through, which is very nice. But I'd like some more, but not until I get the ones I've got growing reasonably well. Otherwise that would be silly, wouldn't it? Anyway, we got some blooms on that one. I can't remember whether it was the beginning of last year or the beginning of the year before when I decided my new genus to try would be these. I wouldn't mind a ruling, for those who definitely know, no guessing. Is this Renanthera or Renanthera? I've always pronounced it Renanthera, but I've heard others say Renanthera. It's the same letters in the same order. And quite honestly, it doesn't really matter that much. Well, it doesn't to me anyway. Now, this is a rescue. This one was bought and the base of the plant rotted badly. And I had to cut it all off, which meant most of the root system was just chopped to get the rot out and get to a decent piece of tissue. And it left me with one root, which has grown a fair bit, but it hasn't branched. There's still no new roots in there. You can see the base of the plant there, but it's growing. We do have a new leaf that's progressing. I wouldn't say it's growing fast, but it's growing, and it's not dead, and it has a root, singular. So all I'm going to do with this is leave it and just let it do its thing. Hopefully at some point it will produce more roots. Now again, Renantheras are classed as warm growers, but the ones I picked had more tolerance of lower temperatures. So normally we talk about cool growers being warmth tolerant. Well, these are warm growers that are coolth tolerant. So I'm being silly now. But at the end of the day, these are supposed to put up with lower temperatures because that's what they have to put up with in the winter. But by choosing those, I thought we can give this genus a go, because some of these are real warm growers. They don't like dropping down below 20 really. But so I bought four actually, and one was virtually dead on arrival. So there's three left, one of which is this, which is a rescue. But nonetheless, I've had a lot worse rescues than this, if you see what I mean. I don't know whether the plant is capable of branching roots or not, so I daren't lose this root, which is growing. It has a growing tip, it gets longer. But no new ones so far. but again, we are coming into better temperatures, longer days and all that sort of stuff. So maybe this one will, I mean, it's been growing slowly and steadily through the winter, which is not bad. That's not what I was expecting it to do. But it may have a bit of a spurt coming soon as the weather gets better. We've got the longer days back. You know, maybe it will come back into a more active form of growth and push out another root or two from, you know, from the main stem. But we'll have to wait and see. At the moment, it's been sitting there looking as though it's doing nothing, when in fact it is actually slowly growing, both the roots and the, you know, the apex leaves. So it is slowly moving, which it's been doing all through the winter. So let's see if it speeds up a bit through the proper growing season and see what we make of this as we go along. Now this one has a bit of a story with it, because I put in an order with speciotic plants, and tucked away in the box was this plant as a gift, and it had a label on it that said the challenge plant, which assumes the person who decided they were going to give it to me knew that it was going to be a problem. Whether it's a problem or not, I'm not sure, because at the moment it doesn't seem to be giving me problems. But I bet you anything you like it would have done if it had a poor root system. It appears to like to grow in a similar manner to zygos. I'm not sure whether they're related or not, probably not. But at the time I got it, I'd never heard of a Pabstia, and I still haven't. I don't know, I don't think it's a very large genus. I don't think there's many in there. I've never heard of it anyway. But it was promptly potted up in the cocoa husk, because it's another one of those likes air around the roots but likes to stay moist. Now, the old root system was maintained and is actively growing in places. So we've got roots, which means the plant can stay hydrated. And it's even pushing some new roots out from the older pseudo bulb, the one, it was in bud or in bloom when I got it, so we've had blooms on it, and it's even pushing out roots from there. But it's got this little new growth here, which I don't think is going to come to anything, but it has a strong new growth there. That's also starting roots as well. I suspect that growth to go on and mature and bloom. That's my expectation with this one, is to get another spike on this latest growth and produce what would then be my own blooms, not ones that were on it when I got it. So I'd like to grow this on into a nice mature sort of specimen that at some point can have multiple spikes on it, because that would put on quite a show. The blooms are very, very attractive if simply coloured, but a slightly unusual shape with those colours make it a delicate view. It's really attractive, and quite honestly, when I got it and it was called the challenge plant and I knew nothing about it, I did that. I didn't look it up. I didn't want to know. I wanted the blooms to be a surprise. I wanted everything to just evolve with it, and not trying to become an expert on it in 10 minutes, if you know what I mean. So it's growing okay. I'm pleased with how it's progressed so far. And as I say, it was classed as a challenge plant. Now, given that it had a spike on it already, the challenge wasn't obviously to get it to bloom, because it was about to do that anyway. The challenge may be to get it to rebloom. So we'll see what we can do, and I'm looking forward to it, because it's got a nice root system. It seems to like the cocoa husk, and it's progressing. So we'll see what we get with this one. Right, whereas the other one was a bit zygo-like, this is very zygo-like, because it is one. And it's a very special zygo, because in my environment this is a very rare occurrence, because it's actually alive, growing, and has bloomed. So for me personally, this is a major success following multiple failures and deaths in the zygo world in my environment. So this to me is now a major success. And quite honestly, this I'm running the virtual show for one of the orchid societies, and the cut-off date is close of play tomorrow. It's made it. So this can go into the any other orchid section because it doesn't fit into any of the other categories. And yeah, it's going to be difficult to get a photo of the whole plant and make it look good because obviously it's tall and I need to get that black background. So what I'll probably have to do is take all of those mounts down and get the piece of cloth that's there hung up higher so that I can back up those blooms. And it will be worth doing it to get that picture. I'm going to have to send in two pictures, one of the whole plant, which is the problem, trying to get the whole plant in, and then a close-up of some blooms. Well, obviously the close-up of some blooms will be quite easy to do. But very attractive blooms, well pleased with a spike like this. This is good stuff. And it was a good idea to stake this one upright and let one arch over because it puts a nice balance to the actual plant. Now, as far as the plant is concerned, it pushed out the new growth in the middle here, which promptly pushed up both spikes. So we've got two spikes on that single growth. The other growth tucked in the back here, or more like in the middle of the plant, hasn't got any spikes. Now that might be because there was only enough strength to push out those spikes and not enough left for this one. But nonetheless, the strength of the plant will now grow. This little shoot here doesn't look like it's going to grow, but who knows, it might do. But at the moment it's dormant, it's not moving. But we're going to get two nice plump pseudo-bulbs on these two growths, which is going to put a lot of extra strength into the plant. The leaves are good on this, because zygos are renowned for having spotty leaves. Well, we're doing okay on the non-spotty leaf front, because they're pretty good. Certainly the new leaves are nice and green. Yeah, so, and we have, existing roots. See if I can get this twisted round. So the root system was maintained that it had, which wasn't bad, and it's grown a lot of new roots down into the pot and across the pot from the base of here. And probably it's done the same at the base of there, but because that's in the middle of the plant, until they reach the edge of the pot, I can't see them. So I class this as a major success for me to not only get a zygo repotted without killing it, but to get it to actively grow on and produce spikes and subsequent blooms. So I'm very pleased with this. I mean, I can't claim the success here really, although I had to do it. It was basically Michael McCarthy said, give that one a go in the cocoa husk, because the coconut husk, although it appears a bit dry on the top sometimes, the humidity in the pot is maintained long after the stuff looks as though it's starting to dry out. So even though your roots might not actually be wet, they've got high humidity around them all the time, which in a case of a zygo is what they like. Quite a few of the zygo species come from incredibly wet places. In some cases almost standing in water, but very, very wet. So they do like that wet round their roots, but with air, not soggy. Well, that really applies to most orchids, doesn't it? Okay, so very pleased with that. And these are just typical zygo blooms. There is a look to them. They do tend to have very similar sepals and petals. They look almost identical, and they tend to be a totally different set of colours to the lip. The lips, generally speaking, are purple. Not always, but in the main there's usually purple in the lip. And the other colours on the petals and sepals vary, but are often a deep burgundy colour or a brownish colour. on a green or a cream or something like that. The pattern can be heavy, almost obliterating the gaps, or it can be stripy. So they have a look about them. They also have a tendency on a spike to do that and actually produce some blooms upside down and sideways on. And yet, this one, all the blooms are upright so far. Now it makes me wonder whether they don't like being stood upright. Which, if you think about it, if you buy one, that's how it's going to be. It's going to be staked for transport. So they're always staked. And I've always known them to look a bit like this, with a couple of upside down ones and a bit higgledy-piggledy. And I just thought that's how they grew. Maybe they need to arch over so that all the blooms can come out the same way up. They also have a tendency for the lip to come out at quite an angle. So the lip nearly always faces the sky, and the petals and sepals are upright. So you get that almost a right angle between the petals and sepals and the lip. The lip faces the sky. So what's going on with these upside down ones, I really don't know. But this is, you know, as far as a spike goes on a zygo, it's almost perfect. All the blooms are aligned nicely. They're all looking good. So anyway, I class that as a major success. And that's the last one in this set. So that's the end of the initial looks. So that's part 4. And all this lot now can be put away for 3 months until we get to June, when we will revisit all of the plants, starting with part 1 again. And we revisit the plants in the same order in each video. But in the next video, we will be looking at the stills taken now from these plants as they are now in March. And we'll pull those up on the screen, have a look at, well, in June we will be saying things like, and this is what this one looked like in March. And then we move on to the video clip taken in June, which will say, and this is what it looks like now. And then again, we move on from June to September and do the same thing and look back at what they were like in June. And then when we get to the end of the season, sort of late November, December time, we will look back over the whole year. So we will say, this is what it looked like in March. This is how it progressed or not in June. This is what it looked like in September towards the end of the season. And this is what it looks like at the end of the season. So those videos end up being quite large, the last ones. Well, they get longer each time, basically, because they sort of double up. But anyway, the initial looks are now done. And we will be back in June with the series, starting with part 1 and comparing the plants with how they were now in March. And that's when the sort of project really comes into its own, when you start seeing the comparisons. But we had to get the initial look to have something to compare with. So I hope you've enjoyed the set so far, and we will be back in June.